it's just amazing to be involved. And it's just, you never know when you start doing something, what might change or what might happen. I never expected to be involved in something that would change people's lives like this.
You're listening to the Family Health Lab. Healthy parents, healthy kids.
Hi Denise, thank you for jumping on this call with me. It's lovely to meet you and to get to chat keto with you for a range of different health conditions.
Thank you.
I've been aware of your work for a number of years. You're one of the, I think, most well-known dietitians in ketogenic diet space for a range of different conditions, epilepsy, seizure conditions, and now, interestingly, mental health, psychiatry, and others. And we'll dive into which conditions that you look at. But I was just recently came across a video with you, an interview with you with Rich at Metabolic Health Summit. And you were talking about a particular person, a particular individual who has gone on a ketogenic diet, and it has been transformative for his health. It's just such a wonderful story. Could you tell me a little bit about that person, that Matt Baszucki? And that was a really emotional interview. So can you tell me a little bit about why you were feeling so emotional telling that story?
Oh gosh, I remember that because I think, well, I cry easy, first of all. It's emotional.
Me too.
Yeah, you said that and it made me cry. I think because when you see lives change and you see someone that just had, such a horrible health condition, and you see literally that your life has changed. And in Matt's case, I'm sure you're familiar with what his family has gone on to do. So it's overwhelming to think, wow, to me, he was, just one more person in the line of people that I'm trying to help and hope and did help. And I'm so glad. And we do the teaching, the people do the hard work of implementing the diet and following the diet. So he did all the hard work, but then to have him do, so well and just 100% remission. And then it to go to, wow, now hundreds, thousands, and I believe it will be millions of people will be impacted because of what his family has done and said, we want to make people aware of this. We want to support research. I think that's why it's overwhelming to me. I feel like I've been thinking about this the last month or two. I know you had Beth Zupec, Kania on for an interview also. And I think, oh my gosh, is this what Beth felt like when the Charlie Foundation started and people with epilepsy were just coming in droves and kids were getting better and adults getting better. This must be how they felt. How exciting it was at the beginning of that for a condition to say, wow, here's this treatment that is so little known and now it's exploding. And so it's just, I think that's just amazing to be involved. It's just amazing to be involved. And it's just, you never know when you start doing something, what might change or what might happen. I never expected to be involved in something that would change people's lives like this.
It's powerful and it's exciting. I mean, we were just talking briefly before we got onto this call about how we got involved in ketogenic diet, and I was telling about my family story. And there's something I think very, very special about finding a therapy. It's not really about a diet; it's about a therapy that is capable of transforming somebody's life in that way, in Matt's way, and in other stories and cases that you've been working with, and then the fact that it's underused, underutilized, it's sometimes under attack as well, and so you're part of this like early foundational wave of pushing this out into the world, which is just, I think it's phenomenal. It's very exciting.
Yeah. Well, and it's what's exciting too. And I feel like the psychiatrists are being really receptive. I'm really happy with the response that we're getting. I feel like they're coming along even quicker than maybe we anticipated. It's hard to judge that as a whole and to really get, know what the feeling is. But in some cases, I can tell you even up until as recently as a year or two ago, I had someone come in and say, my neurologist told me not to put my child on this diet, that it was cruel and unusual punishment. This is in 2022. Someone said that, a doctor said that. And that's, I'm going to start getting salty even just saying it again. And yet this mom, just like you said in your story, she did it anyway. She went and found someone else who was going to do that and who would help them and got her child on the diet. And she said she's been seizure free for 2 years.
Wonderful.
And I believe she came into us maybe for a tune-up and some monitoring is why she even needed us. But wow, a doctor said that. And for a treatment that's been proven for 100 years, it has many, many randomized control trials. There's no question that it's a legitimate treatment for epilepsy. It's psychiatric conditions. The studies are ongoing. There's lots of case studies and proof and anecdotal evidence. No question that it's going to prove out to be, also a great treatment, and we're going to have RCTs, and we're involved in RCTs right now. So that's really exciting.
It is exciting, and that's going to again help push this and get convince those practitioners. Going back to Matt's story, I don't think we said what condition he had and his symptoms and how his life was beforehand. Can you share a little bit about his backstory and the transformation? What did change for him?
Yeah, and I will, and because he says all this publicly, and in talks on podcasts, so I can say, things that he has shared, and he has bipolar disorder, and he will share that he was in treatment facilities 4 or 5 times, had spent many months. He had been homeless. He had lived behind a dumpster. He just alienated his family, just walked away several times. And medication wise, I believe it's 28 medications that he had been on over a period of 4 or 5 years. And obviously they continued to fail and continue to fail. And so, so it was just another of many, many people that the treatments don't work. There are definitely people who can go on some medications and then they feel better, and maybe the treatments do work, and we don't want to say that they never work. But there seem to be, quite a number. And if you look at statistics, they're pretty poor for medications working without really debilitating side effects or horrible weight gain, which would be a debilitating side effect.
This happened from a really young age when he went to college or university. This transformation happened quite rapidly. And over then a course of 4 or 5 years, he experienced these awful and traumatic symptoms of ups with mania and then deep crashes with his depression. And the family had resources, so they were able to get the best physicians, best clinicians, best treatment from around America, and get him to meet with all these different people, get him on 28 different types of medication. And nothing had the impact. And then how did he come across, how did you begin working with him? What was the link up there?
I believe they found us through Dr. Palmer, through Dr. Palmer's site. He had been sending us patients for a few years already at that point, as he was starting to see more and more people. And he's like, I don't have time to be a dietitian because I need to send some of these people out, because I think at the beginning he was just teaching them. He knew he was doing that. He knew what to do. And so I believe it was through Dr. Palmer that they came to us. And so, yeah.
And now he's living his life. He's living his best life. He's maintains a ketogenic diet, and he is an ambassador, because once you've been through such a powerful change, but he's very brave at being so open about his traumatic past with mental illness, serious mental illness. But how exciting to go and do your job and come home and know that you've had that impact on a family. So wonderful.
Yeah. And from when you say that, most of the dietitians that I know that do keto, they generally don't change. They don't change to something else, and unless just the pressure of sometimes it's so much, as far as so involved with people, so much extra time sometimes, unless that kind of overwhelms them and the work-life balance gets bad. But in general, dietitians that I know, we stay here because we've never done anything else that has worked so well. There's never, I mean, and for years in the hospital, I would try to find something that was satisfying, and I would gravitate toward education. And then I gravitated toward diabetes, and I thought, I can't, not many people lose weight, but I can help people get their blood sugars down, or I can help this. And then I gravitated to gestational diabetes, because they listen. Women with gestational diabetes, they're pregnant, they will listen to you. And so then I really liked that. And then I got over to keto, like, oh my gosh. And it was with pediatrics at the beginning. And these parents are doing exactly what you say. And I've never had a position as a dietitian where more than 20, 30% of people did what I said or suggested. And so that was just wow. And I at first I didn't know much about keto when I started. I really didn't have a lot of training. And then as I went on, and these kids were coming in, and the parents are bringing in, and what I say this all the time on podcasts, so people will say, oh, I've heard that before, but I can't get tired of it. And they say, I got my kid back. And so you have these parents that they know, and you were talking about your daughter, and she's running and happy and playing, little child, and then they're gone because of different reasons. And it could be because of epilepsy, because of psychiatric conditions, because of numerous health conditions. And when they say they got their kid back, like, man, yeah, I had a great day at work today. I had a great day. I haven't worked in years, right? I mean, so that's the definition of work is not, I don't know, you get paid for what you love, and so that's it's not a job.
Yeah, when you do see that, and I've spoken to Emma Williams from Matthew's Friends, and like you said, Beth, Zupec, Kania, and that joy. I mean, for Emma, it was seeing that in her own son, that the lights came on in his eyes, and so many other families have said that to me. It's like a switch, the light came on, and it's different degrees with epilepsy and with seizure conditions and with potentially autism and different conditions. People's experiences of improvements will be very different, but I do hear that light, that communication, that understanding, that switched on. And so you've seen that with a number of different families and with different types of conditions. What about autism? Have you dealt with many families with that condition?
Yeah, and about 30% of children with autism have epilepsy. So a lot of times we have those concurrent conditions, and we see that. And what's interesting, I used to think that when kids would get better, I mean, there's so many different reasons. I think, they're having fewer seizures, and they're more bright, and they're more attentive. And then you start realizing it was maybe some of the autistic symptoms are less. Or then you realize, oh, wow, maybe it was the medications that were making them so down and so draggy, and even some of the long-term side effects that we see are children that can't eat or can't walk or whatever's going on. The medications may be playing a bigger part than we realize in those conditions. I think that's something that really needs to be delved into, and they should be used with caution.
Although we do have some good case studies and small studies of cohorts of around 30 children with neurodevelopment conditions and some without, that show that changing diet to a ketogenic diet, or changing diet even to an unprocessed whole foods diet, makes a big difference in symptoms. So, but yes, the interactions with medications and things like that make things much more complicated. Yeah. You've worked with lots of different families by the sound of it over your 30-year career, and 15 years now specializing in ketogenic diet. I've heard there's people talk sometimes about the side effects of ketogenic diet, and in my time of researching it, and my understanding is we can mitigate that through side effects quite readily through having a nutrient dense whole foods diet, water, lower fat ratio, all of those good things. But the one most annoying reason for not putting somebody on a ketogenic diet, and I still hear this repeated, is that families can't do this, and adults with a health condition can't do this diet. So what are your thoughts on hearing that as a reason not to give people the option?
Just because they can't do it, you mean? I can't do it is a reason?
The assumption from the medical profession that parents and families and adults won't do it, won't sustain it, won't maintain it.
That, wow. That makes me really angry because sometimes, yes, they make that assumption and sometimes they decide for the family and they never offer that as a treatment, which then takes me right back around to that's malpractice. I don't think that if you ask somebody, could you do chemotherapy? We're all going to say, no, I don't want to do chemotherapy. Who could do that? Without a very good reason, you would never do it. Yet if you thought that would save your life, absolutely you would do that. And if the doctor said, this is the thing you need to do, there's a chance it will save your life, there's a chance it will cure cancer, then you say, let's go. Okay, we'll do that. Most people would choose to do it, even though it has horrific side effects, far worse than anything, that keto could ever do. But you would do that. And yet the doctors don't say, there's no way they could do chemotherapy. That's going to be too hard. No, that's not how it works. And so choosing for somebody, and I think we do try to screen people, and in the hospital, you do have to say, okay, perhaps economically, but if it's an economic only issue, I think we should help them and figure it out. If it's that there are social issues and if they can't even take medicines, there are times when we have to say, okay, if this person cannot even take their medications regularly, or the parents can't get them into the children, then are they going to follow keto? So I think there are times when it might be appropriate to say that, but I think you should still say, you need to get, do you want to get your life together to a point to offer your child this treatment? I still think it's something you say. I still think it's something they need to know that it exists, because I've seen some families do this and be successful that were very unlikely candidates that I would have thought, wow, I don't think if I had known them before that I would have suspected they could do it. But, these usually moms, it can be dads too, sorry, but these moms are fierce. And they may have a lot of things going against them, but don't count them out. Don't count them out.
That's my understanding. When people are counting them out in that way, they don't know what's going on behind the scenes. They don't know how well and how much and how strong that those mamas are advocating for those children already, and all of the different actions that they're putting into place. So this is another huge action. It's a therapy, and yeah, I've seen the results. I've seen people work and really fight and maintain it. You mentioned gestational diabetes, and I know that was earlier in your career. I was wondering whether diabetes or gestational diabetes is still one of the conditions that people come to you with. My interest in that is we have rising prevalence of diabetes, but also diabetes during pregnancy, gestational diabetes. And the research is clearly showing that having high blood sugar, raised blood sugar during pregnancy puts the baby's brain development at risk and puts you at high risk of having offspring with neurodevelopment, so autism, for example. So is that something you're involved in at this stage, or are you specialising now in different conditions?
We haven't had people come in specifically with gestational diabetes, because I would hope in their clinics they're getting, they may not be getting a very low carb diet, but we even back, 15, 20 years ago, we're doing a relatively low carb diet for that. But still not to the point of keto. So no, we're not really doing that. At the same time, we support that. We have occasionally people come in, and pregnancy is something that we talk about, because there's some concerns about, okay, what about ketones during pregnancy? Are those okay? Because of course you get the first thing they do, they dip your urine and they look for blood sugar and blood ketones. And some of the research is, I haven't seen any recent research, not that there isn't any, but some of the very older research in the 90s is looking at women with type 1 diabetes in diabetic ketoacidosis with, excessively high blood sugars in a starvation state, and they had some children with neurodevelopmental issues, or at least a lower IQ. I don't even know if you would say neural issues. I think you just say a lower IQ, I believe. Anyway, so given that, we have to use some caution, but we're not most of the time talking about people with type 1 diabetes. Very often we're talking about women with epilepsy. and should you be on Depakote and topiramate and, these different medications, or on the ketogenic therapy. And I would dare say ketogenic therapy is probably much safer. Some of those medications are very well known to cause birth defects.
I'm interested in the nuts and bolts of your work in how you get families and adults with different conditions, how you walk them through step by step to make their diet changes. So if you could let me know about the conditions that you're treating often and how you work.
Conditions that we're seeing. So, I mean, I'd say the most common thing right now in the mental health area would be bipolar disorder. We definitely have a significant number of patients with schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder. Usually along with those things come anxiety and depression, right? Just as a rule, and a lot of people with ADHD coming in. So as well as epilepsy, we don't want to miss, because that's one thing that we're looking at, kind of like not missing our marketing on. We love epilepsy. We love epilepsy. That sounds strange, but that's kind of our first love is epilepsy. And we still see many people with that, adults and pediatrics.
I'm not sure if many people know now that that's happening, that treatment option is so available, jumped from one area of brain health to another area of brain health, mental health, neurological health, which is cool. I think that's fascinating. But then just walk me through. I'm a new patient. I've come into the clinic. You're supporting me. How does it work? How do you get me to change my diet?
Okay. So we do, the first thing we do is very first thing I do before I work with somebody is get them on either a group call, which informational call, so they can just ask some questions, because everybody comes in with some questions, and either that or a private informational call. It's 20 minutes. Let's just talk. Let's just, have an understanding of what you're looking for. So someone comes in, because we're a cash pay service. And so when someone comes in and purchases a program, we want them to know what they're getting and have a good understanding of it. So it's not like they're coming in. It's a little different when you are in a hospital system and someone comes in and their insurance pays it and they're like, oh, I'll try this, regardless. So we want them to have a great understanding. We do different lengths of packages, but on any type of a package, the first call with a patient, we call an intake call. And it'd be just like when you go to the doctor and they say, okay, I want to know your health history. I want to see your lab work. We have specific keto lab work that we have them do. I want to know who does the cooking at home, and I want, a basic intake about how they eat. What do they like? I find it, what I hope, and the most important thing to me is that people understand that we care and that we're trying to help them and we're going to walk beside them. So we want to teach them to fish, not hand them a fish, right? We want to, equip them to follow this. And so then the first call, also what I hope to find out through that first call, myself, my team, is we want to find out how that person thinks. And I ask them on their intake form what their career is. What do you do? And I know some people might think, well, what do you care? What do I do? Well, I want to know if you're an engineer or if you're an artist. Because if you're an engineer, you probably love numbers and you're methodical, and maybe you'd like to work on Keto Diet Calculator, which is a program through the Charlie Foundation, and it's very specific, and we love doing it because we can very specifically adjust the ratios, or call it the macros, the percent fat in the diet, and we can titrate it as we want to. We can adjust the calories very efficiently. There's very little room for question. It's very scientifically done. So we call that precision keto. Love to do that. But if you try to take someone who's an artist or an artistic personality who's like flowy and flexible and give them this very strict meal plan, you've frustrated them to death. And guess how I know that? Because I've done that many times. I've done it wrong. We learn, right? Hopefully those of us, as you move on in life, we learn from our mistakes. And so hopefully I've learned. So I'm a lot more judicious about recommending precision keto. I still want people to know it's an option, because sometimes people surprise me. They'll say, I want to do that. But Anyway, so what we want to figure out again in that first call is, how do you think? And if it's very overwhelming and the diet's stressful for them, I've had people, like, for example, one young woman with very severe bipolar disorder. And I mean, sometimes I don't know the line between that and schizoaffective, but it seems like it might have been a little more schizoaffective. But anyway, very severe. And she sent me pictures of her food, and some other people have done that as well. Send me pictures. We'll look at that. We'll evaluate that. It's very easy to do in our health portal. Of course, you can do it by email, and show me what you're eating. And then I can just look at that and say, all right, more of this, less of this. And that's less upsetting for somebody than saying, oh, you need to eat 3 ounces of this and 2 cups of this. It might be too much. But I'll tell you, people come in now entirely. I can't even tell you how much this has changed in the past. I'd say I've been in private practice for, I think, 8 years, I think 2016. And it used to be I would send everybody a scale, a meter, little measuring, little cups, all the things, and, to get them started and have your keto kit, until I realized after, I don't know, a year or two, I'm running to the post office and trying to mail these things out. And they're like, well, I already have a meter, and I already have a scale, and I already have the, wow, I'll save my time then. So I stopped doing that because people came in with that. And then it was, well, I had to teach them how to use the meter. Well, now they know how to use the meter, and they come in, and I'd say a large percentage of them are using Ketomojo, which is great. And they have wonderful training videos. Boom. Now I don't need to train on the meter anymore. And then, then we're talking about what keto is, and they've been listening to podcasts and watching things. And so the education level that most people come in at is so much higher than it was even 2 years ago. Even I'd say since Metabolic Mind came out, and a lot of these, there's so many more sources of education than there used to be. So now when people come in, sometimes we're glossing through some of the education because they've seen a lot of that. This is review for them. I want to make sure we haven't missed anything, but now we're really getting down into the nitty gritty of what are you doing? Because very often people come in and they are already trying it. They'll say, I've been doing this for 2 months, but I can't get my ketones up. It's not always like that, but I'd say a decent percentage of people, I'd say over 50% are coming in already on keto. But it's hard to get your ketones up, and for a lot of people, and maintain them day and day and day in and day out in order to get that therapeutic benefit and healing. So we're walking through at each appointment, one, doing the training, and if it's Keto Diet Calculator helps us take people, and whether you are artistic or not, sometimes like, okay, you've been doing this for 2 months. If you just let me plan you meals on here, I promise you, we're going to get you in ketosis, because you're going to be in exactly this. And if your ketones aren't there at a 1.5 to 1 ratio at 77% fat, I'm going to put you to a 2 to 1. We're going to go to this percent fat. There's no question mark. The scale doesn't lie. And we'll get your numbers. We'll get it. And we'll figure out what do you need. And then hopefully they can break up with the scale. That's the idea too. Who wants to weigh their food for the next 2 years? Nobody. But if we can figure out where it needs to be, then you can start eyeballing it more and keeping it in line, or maybe weighing on occasion when you're home, just to keep yourself in line. Because it's really easy to start getting heavy-handed with things. If you're heavy-handed with the butter, with the olive oil, you're probably okay. But if you're heavy-handed with your broccoli or your chicken, you get in trouble.
Yeah, so it's very, very tailored approach, isn't it? Some people's concerns and some people's challenges are going to be different. I really echo how much I've seen it change from explaining what a carbohydrate was and the full concept of what a ketosis diet was. That was a good part of my consults. And now that's much more rare. Now it is the troubleshooting. It is the person who comes to me and says, right, well, I've been on keto and then low carb, and intermittent fasting, and now I'm on carnivore. And it's working out, where the challenges are and what the problems for that person is. On that, just that I've mentioned carnivore, do you have people who choose that approach, and do you have thoughts on a high protein, how it works for people?
Yeah, so we do have people that come in, wanting carnivore or on carnivore, and we definitely support that. I'm still trying to figure that out. To tell you in all honesty, absolutely supportive of it. I cannot argue, cannot debate the fact that it's helping some people. I got an email yesterday or today or yesterday, and it was a patient I'd worked with. She had some improvements, and it was kind of up and down on improvements. And then after they stopped working with us, they were still following keto, but they had gotten all the information they needed. The family was maintaining it. They went in and they went to Carnivore, and apparently she's doing fabulous now. And like, oh my gosh, wish I'd have tried that. And I didn't. And we've seen this, this is happening more. And Dr. E, definitely that's on her trajectory of things to start. And we're moving toward that to where we've got to say, I'd rather, and honestly, people have the variety, right? I think a lot of us need the variety of the food. And some people just really thrive on carnivore. Like, I'm fine. All I did was cook a steak and I'm fine. That's great if it works for them and that's satisfying and they're okay. But other people that may not be a long-term solution. Sometimes when people are doing carnivore, they're not getting into ketosis. And maybe they do or don't need a lot of ketones. So we can debate that, whether or not that person in that condition really needs a low-carb diet that's causing some benefits, or they need the ketones. But if you're eating a 12-ounce steak a couple times a day, you may not be in good ketosis. And I had a gentleman come in with that, and he was like, I can't get in ketosis. I'm like, well, you're eating 12 to 16-ounce steak twice a day. Yeah, but I can't get in ketosis. Well, I think it's your steak. We're going to have to talk about your steak. And that was hard to swallow. He wasn't really, well, that was a joke. He wasn't hard to swallow, the steak. Anyway, but because of that, it was hindering what he needed. He couldn't get into ketosis. And so he couldn't get the benefits. Where someone else may be doing that and feeling great. And, if people don't need to be, I don't want the whole world to be keto. If people don't need to be in high ketosis, if we can eat a super healthy whole food diet and be healthy and have great metabolic health, then absolutely. I don't think we need to tell everybody in the world they need to be keto. But I think we can tell everybody that, hey, sugar's not a great idea. That it's going to get us in trouble. And I think there are some generalities we can give, about processed food and sugars and things. But if we don't need to go all the way to a super strict ketogenic diet, then let's not.
Well, if somebody is listening and keto diet or carnivore, they sound extreme to them, but they want to see if food can make a difference to their health. I've seen it in my clinic that people come in and worked with children. You've mentioned working with children with autistic children and ADHD adults. So I'm working with those as a nutritionist, and I've seen absolutely amazing results from getting out that processed food that you're mentioning, getting those sugars out, getting them off soft drinks particularly because, they're so loaded with sugars, and increasing their protein and reducing their refined carbohydrates, so bread, pasta, cereals, and getting them on just to whole foods. And they haven't needed or wanted to take another step then towards lower carb or carb restriction and then ketosis, because they've got the results they're looking for. Talking with some people with ADHD, for example, or they've said that they're more alert, they're more can pay more attention, and they feel like even without going it fully into ketosis, that they feel like they've got the pep that they get sometimes from their medication. They're getting the clarity. And then some people talk about an underlying anxiety going away that they didn't even know was a constant in their background chatter, that they had that low level anxiety all of the time until it cleared. So what are your thoughts on, have you got any experiences and can you share the benefits people do experience from either processed free foods or the keto diet changes?
Yeah. And I have to echo every single thing you've said, where people, yes, on the anxiety getting better, so many people, like the first thing they notice is like their energy improve, energy increase. And there's an occasion if people go into ketosis too quickly where their energy might go down for a few days or even a couple of weeks if they really shock their system. I kind of prefer to have people do it slowly so it doesn't do that. But anyway, but the energy, when you talked about the light coming on, I mean, that we see that a lot, and it's kind of a progression, and something like, for example, let's take epilepsy, where someone might have, they may have, let's say that a child has 2 seizures a day, and after each seizure, they'll have a postictal phase, which means, they're tired and they're still kind of impacted, and maybe they'll take a 3-hour nap after each seizure. So, I mean, their whole day's gone. It's like someone having a migraine. You just have to go to bed. So the first thing they see is, the parent might notice is, wow, they only stayed in bed for 2 hours after their seizure. And then, the next week they say, well, they only stayed in bed for an hour after their seizure. And you might think, wow, they still had 2 seizures a day. But no, if you look at that and say hours of life that they got back, that was a whatever percent decrease, because now they've gained 4 hours back a day out of the whatever 6 or 7 that were impacted. And so that's what starts to happen, or a migraine gets shorter. And so we start to have, or someone's manic episode is shorter, or their reaction to something is less severe. And we try to help people a little bit notice those things, because sometimes you can look and say, well, I'm still having this, or I'm still having that. But is it shorter? Is it less severe? And so those were the first things. I had one woman with depression, and this was in a group class we had. And this is, I will get emotional, because she said, it was after about 4 weeks. And she said, I had a positive thought today. And it just, mic drop. I just thought, and I've not suffered to that scale. I can't say I've never been depressed, but I never suffered to that level ever. And so to hear someone say I had a positive thought, to think, first of all, wow, how overwhelming that you haven't had one in so long, that today you had one. So that was 4 weeks in on keto, and she had a positive thought. And so that's, just that. Yeah, I can't even, it's hard to, how do you document that, right? How do you put percent improvement on that? You just got to say that they're getting better. So, yeah.
It's interesting, because in a study that might not flag up,
Yeah.
We don't always capture that, but that they're the things that I ask people to notice as they're reporting to me, and they do send photos of their meals. I get those sent to me, and they send me their food diaries and their symptoms of what's going wrong. And I always make sure that I emphasize for them to put as much energy into reporting and noticing what has improved. And that's a lovely discussion, isn't it? What, when they're saying, oh, I had a child, I've mentioned this child on the podcast, and his family came to me, and we were working together for a few months, and I read the report before of how he was getting on before our consultation, as I always do, and I underscored the word happy throughout the document, and it had never come up before. And there were several times his father was filling the reports in, and he'd said happy, he seemed happy, he smiled today. And I was just, I still feel emotional when I think of that. And that change, and the other change he reported was that he walked into his nursery, and then he walked out, and then he went to a playground and walked to the playground and played in the playground. And for somebody else outside of that family, that sounds small, it sounds insignificant. All of the other children were doing that. But this child was not able to do that. Energy-wise, mood-wise, he just was not able. He physically completely capable of it, but mood, energy levels, social skills, he wasn't. So to see those type of changes, which don't come out in the reports, in the research very often, that qualitative information, that the quality of how your life is impacted, I love hearing that one positive thought from your lady.
Yeah, and quality of life is something that is well reported in some of the cancer studies, because the early cancer studies, they want to say, is keto safe, and that, that type of, that level, and the level 1 studies, and quality of life always improves with keto. So then, and yeah, if your energy is a little better, if you're feeling better, you don't report improved quality of life usually, unless your mood or your activity or something is going better than it was before. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
You mentioned ADHD, that you see people, is it mainly adults or is it children? And what kind of results would they get working with you, or have you seen?
I'll say it's more so adults that I've seen with that. And it's usually kind of a concurrent condition, along with, I don't know. I mean, maybe we've had an occasional person that comes in only for that, but usually that's lumped in with someone who's suffering with several other mental health conditions. But yeah, we've had people say they can focus longer, they can they have better, just better attention span. I mean, those are just kind of generalities, but they're kind of highlighting to me, making me think, I think we try to do some symptom tracking and reporting and, percent improvements, but it's a lot. But I think that's something that we need to do even more of and do better of, because, as we can reflect that back, for people. So, yeah.
It's highly motivating, I find, for them, because otherwise our sessions are the mechanics and practicalities of foods. And in a few weeks in, when they've got the diet, they understand the concept, then we're talking the challenges and the problems and the obstacles. And then we're also talking about their symptoms. So I love also talking about the wins, where we're winning here. So you've also, you mentioned
I was just going to say that it comes to that really quickly and quicker, as I mentioned, that people come in already having so much good basic information that it evolves through the education process much quicker than it ever did. And it comes, much more about the implementation, you're going on vacation next week. What are you going to do? Just thinking through those things. How are you going to do that? How are you going to handle that party? Who cooks, that kind of thing. And the symptoms, those things come to the forefront much sooner when we work with people than they used to. They used to be quite far down the road when you could dig into that. But now it's, they come in, we're just, again, we're fine tuning from, the second or third appointment, it almost feels like.
I think that's what people want to hear, how we get them through the challenges. And I also think people want to hear about that others are experiencing the challenges, because they hear the positives of ketogenic diet and diet change, but they're struggling to do that for themselves or for their own children or start a family member, then it might feel to them like they're failing. So I think the realities of that, you're working with people and I'm working with people to help them unpick decades and decades of a different type of eating style and eating habits. And lots of people, in fact, it's the minority who take the diet, get the leaflet, get the info, and off they run. And that's it for life. They're completely sorted. Most people need a bit of support around that. So it's really interesting to hear how you're supporting them and what kind of challenges. So
I wasn't really planning on talking about this, but I'm going to, because I feel like it comes right up with what you're saying, because I feel like it's a huge need, the long-term support and accountability. And I tell people, like, when we try to encourage them to work with us on a month, we call it monthly monitoring, and see them once a month, and they can ask us questions, of course, in the meantime, but they have that call, it's coming, 1 or 2 calls a month. So, and I said, it's just accountability. It's that accountability level. But what we're working on and we'll roll out in a few months is a membership community to work with that and I'm really excited about it, because I feel like one of the biggest parts of that is the accountability, is
Excellent.
having accountability level where people are, you have the community, because we keep hearing that from patients where like, can you connect us with somebody? Is there a community? Is there, what is there? And there are a few things. It's not that there's nothing out there, but it shows the need. And we need way more than 1 or 2 or 3 of these. And so, but that's what people are saying. We need that. And I think what they need is something too, to say, did you check your ketones today? Did you track your symptoms today? Or did you track your symptoms this week? Right. We need those things, and it needs to be some kind of a system and something somewhat automated and generated, and then a reward system, because like I'm doing Duolingo, and, it's cute little, guy, that's all happy for me when I say my German word right. So something that's impacting, it's some kind of let's say gamification, or however you want to put it, that is going to give people some kind of motivation. I mean, it's not, we don't fully have this figured out yet. We're working through this process right now. We're deep in the middle of it, and I'm excited about it. But I think that's something that we can help people go to the next level with.
Interesting. And when I've mentioned that I give private one-to-one family consults or individual adult consults with nutrition changes, but I love group work, because by week 3 in a low-carb or ketogenic group, by week 3, they're supporting each other. They're saying, oh, I've got this event coming up, and how would you tackle that? And then giving examples. Or they're saying, oh, my family members sabotaging me in this way. They keep bringing the cake that they know I can't resist into the house, and they help with strategies and even just sympathizing and empathizing. So I love it. I'm excited, Denise. I'll watch out for that as that's released and the community grows. I think that's going to be really supportive and motivating.
Yeah, we're excited.
And in terms of migraines, you mentioned it earlier a couple of times, and I do think of you, which is a weird thing to say, when someone I'm working with, or a friend even, says that they have migraines. I do think of you because of your book you brought out a few years ago. Because your book was, I think, different to others. It was very, very practical. It was really a cookbook and recipes to help support you. So can we talk a little bit about migraines and why you focused on that, but also how a ketogenic diet, how does it support somebody with migraines?
Yeah. So, I mean, think to me, and I don't know, I probably would get in trouble for saying this. I'm not a neurologist, but to me, a migraine is almost like a little seizure. You know, I mean, your brain is overact. I don't know if overacting is the proper word. I gotta be careful. But obviously it's misfiring and something's going on. And just, we know this is working on all these neurological conditions. If someone asks me and says, and so I'll just pretend you asked me, what is the most likely thing that ketogenic diet is going to help? I immediately would say migraines. Because I've seen people within a week or two, way quicker than epilepsy, way quicker than mental health. I've seen migraines just stop or diminish greatly in a relatively short period of time. So how do we support them with migraines? I think a lot of people with migraines don't need a full-out ketogenic diet. I think they're more, when they get into a low-carb diet and maybe rolling on the verge of ketosis at some level there, I think they're having some benefit. And even going on a ketogenic therapy for a period of time, I would even challenge people with migraine to say, wow, you can do it for 4 or 5 months and then back off. You can't go back just to eating if you were eating a lot of sugar and a lot of processed carbs, but you might find some healing over a shorter period of time and then see what it takes. I've had people on keto for a few months and then go off keto for various reasons and have 4 or 5 months of no migraines even after they were totally off the diet. And I thought, well, that's really interesting. And then they eventually resumed, but what if they hadn't gone fully off the diet? So that's something else. Oh, I think it's exciting in migraines. And Dr. Di Lorenzo out of Italy, they really quickly came up with a consensus state. I feel like it was pretty quick. Came up with a consensus statement around migraines and to say, hey, this is a good therapy. I mean, it's proven enough. We have enough research. Let's do this and let's start using it. So I, can almost get as frustrated as I have with epilepsy in the past when it's not recommended as it should be, because I've seen child after child in the hospital when I was in a pediatric hospital, laying there in a dark room, with the team coming in, and they're in there for these horrible and, refractory migraines, intractable migraines, and thinking, wow, we could do something with this. And now I left the hospital, 6 years ago. And so, but even then I was standing there thinking, can we put this kid on keto? There wasn't as much research then, and that I didn't really get very far, but it was hard to watch. And now that there is a consensus statement or a recommendation around migraines, I think that we need to get this in front of the neurologists, and they, really, if they're not going to recommend it, I think they need a reason why. So at this point, I think the burden of proof is on the doctor to why they should not use this therapy.
Yeah, no, well, that's powerful. And yes, and that's, I mean, we're tipping the scale of more and more uses, but the reality out there is that a lot of people would not be informed about this as an option if they rocked up at their clinician meeting or the hospital appointment. And if they are told about it, that their support isn't there, it's under-resourced, underutilized at this stage, but we're moving in the right direction, and it's a powerful intervention, as we're hearing from you, for a wide range of conditions. Very, very exciting. In terms of how somebody, if they're interested in learning more, could find out more about your work or follow your work or get in touch, how could they best do that?
Yes, at advancedketogenictherapies.com. And then also, I guess I might as well tell as far as clinicians. So Beth Zupec, Kania, and I have developed a training program called Keto Mastery, and that's at ketomastery.pro, I believe. And it's ketogenic therapeutics mastery program. And we have 3 different training programs on there. We have a foundational course, an advanced course, and then a psychiatric specific course. And we've come up with this. It kind of was birthed out of, we started doing online before COVID, thankfully, doing some online training so we could be more effective and impact more people. Beth has trained, she'll say we have trained over 300 centers and places, around the world with the Charlie Foundation. But what's really true is Beth has trained like 280 and I've trained 20. She's been doing this much longer than I have. I came on, maybe 8 years ago or so, working with training with her. And so that's been really fun to go to some of these hospitals and do training. But we also said, wow, we need to multiply ourselves. And so we started that with these courses, and they're really, we think they're great and they're much more, they're very application focused. And we want to, show you how to apply, how to manage the diet for people. So we have physicians come on there and do these class sessions with it, or training, classes with us. We have dietitians, nutritionists. We have parents and just families and caregivers take them as well. They're aimed at clinicians, we always say, but we don't restrict the access. And so, yes, and we have quarterly Q&A sessions, which are actually also very fun, very robust, where we just let people come in and just ask us anything about their clients, about what's going on with their clients and how to manage them well. So that's really, really exciting too. So we have we're working with different studies. And I keep saying we, so I'm not French, but my company, Advanced Ketogenic Therapies, it started just me, just working with people. And then I called one of my keto friends and said, hey, I've got a lot of patients. Can you come help me? And then over time, just this need has just been exponential. So I keep adding dietitians. So I have 9 dietitians. I have a Dr. Armino also. She's been working keto and epilepsy for years, is working with me as well. So we're no one has less than 5 years experience that I brought on the team. That would have to be someone would have to really impress me to make that exception, because I feel very strongly that people come in and they're, paying for this service, and they need to have people that have been doing this and can manage all different types of conditions, et cetera. So we're pulling only from a pool of people that have good experience, and then further training them if they haven't been seeing people with psychiatric conditions yet. We're absolutely training them and bringing them up to speed very quickly.
That sounds fantastic. A fantastic resource for people of experts, passionate to help people improve their health. In terms of to close, what would you like families, somebody, an adult perhaps, or parents who have a child facing a specific condition, what would you like them to know?
Well, I'd like them to know, I think, is as a parent, and I haven't had to deal with this as a parent, okay, as you have. So I fully understand that I'm not sitting in the same seat as them. And they look and they say, but sometimes they'll say, well, food is the only thing they have left, or it's one of their few pleasures in life. I think, okay, but they're having seizures and that's not okay. Or they have bipolar disorder, or they have schizophrenia, or whatever conditions going on, or, ADHD. these conditions are also not fair. They're not living their best life while they're suffering from those conditions, and they very well likely are suffering. And this is a gift you can give them. And I can't, I can only sit here from the seat of a clinician who I care deeply about the parents. So I can't empathize. I can only sympathize. But I think it would be great to try. We want to give these people a chance, and we recommend about a 4-month trial with a ketogenic therapy to really see if it's going to work. So I think asking yourself, is it worth the difficulty and inconvenience, because it is hard and it's not convenient, yet what if their life could change? What if they could feel 50% better? What if they could feel 75% better? Is that worth it? I had a mom, and I know you want to end, but real quick, I had a mom yesterday. Her daughter's in college across the state, and she said, I'll cook for you. I'm going to bring you food every Saturday if it's okay. So I put the mom in timeout, took her off Zoom. I said, do you want your mom to do this or not? Right. And then when I talked to the mom later alone, she said, I'll cook for her the rest of her life if she wants me to, if she'll let me. Okay. She just wants her daughter to get better. And it's her daughter's choice. This person's an adult, but don't, just try, just consider trying, even if you think it's going to be hard, even if you think people are going to think you're crazy, even if you think they're not going to eat it, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised.
That's amazing. I think that story just resonates with me. It shows me the passion and the emotion that you feel for this work, for helping those families. I really appreciate your time on this talk, and I really appreciate your work with these families out there, and the wider now cascading impact you're having. So thank you so much, Denise.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please make sure to subscribe. This really helps us to be able to create more content.